Good morning. This is a video for the answers on Luke 15, verses 1 through 7. We will continue by reading the first question. 1. He who has ears to hear, let him hear, says Jesus, and then begins Luke 15. Read Luke 15, 1 through 7. Who has ears and yet is not hearing? And why are they not hearing or understanding? So, I mean for you to think of the Pharisees. Immediately beginning this, the Pharisees wished to assault Jesus for dealing with sinners, for being with those who they consider to be outside of society. They say, Jesus is dealing with sinners. How can he be a teacher, a rabbi? They want to strip his followers from him because he's dealing with these undesirables. Now, why are they not hearing or understanding? Because they have a false view of God's love and of grace, and a false view of themselves, more importantly. They think of themselves as being holier and better than other people. They don't look at themselves as children of God who are given that position by God's love, not by their worth. They think they have earned that position. In other words, works righteousness. And they look at others who societally are not being as beneficial to society, and they say they have not earned that position and that they deserve nothing but God's punishment, while the Pharisees think that they deserve only God's love, grace, and beneficence. Number 2, why didn't people like tax collectors? Well, people didn't like sinners because, they hurt society, but tax collectors were a particularly bad breed from a societal perspective. You see, the tax collectors take your money, and they took more than they had to because that's how they made a profit. And they did it for the Romans, who had conquered Israel and were very hated. And so they were seen as traitors to the Jewish society. They were those who took money which the Jews didn't feel they earned, and they were cheats. All many reasons to dislike tax collectors. Number 3, why did the Pharisees think Jesus shouldn't associate with sinners? Well, under Jewish law, if you associate with sinful things, that you are yourself considered to be unclean. Like if you associate with the dead, then you're unclean. Or certain times of a person's life, if you associate with them, lepers, you're unclean and you have to be cleansed. And so they felt that by associating with sinners, Jesus was making himself unclean, not realizing, not hearing that Jesus had God's ability to clean those who were unclean. 4, define a sinner in reality. A sinner is anyone who doesn't obey God's commands, who doesn't do his life according to God's purposes. So in reality, everyone is a sinner. B, as the Pharisees, however, defined a sinner, they were those who lived their lives in a way that the Pharisees did not consider right. So they defined their sinner according to their, not according to God's plan, but according to their own reasoning about God's plan. And they considered a sinner to be one who did really bad sins. There are no such thing as really bad sins. All sins are equally mortal. That means they equally cause death. So all people are sinners deserving of God's wrath. 5, why does Jesus tell this parable? He tells it for 2 audiences. He tells it for the Pharisees, so that they partially don't understand, and that causes them to think, what aren't we getting? And so that they can see that their behavior doesn't align with the behavior of God, the behavior of the shepherd who goes out and seeks his sheep, the good shepherd. And he tells this parable for us who are his sheep so that we have comfort. And so that we know how we have comfort that Jesus has rescued us as sinners, and so that we know how to treat those whom Jesus goes out and rescues. Any person, no matter what they have done, evil, horrid, any person who comes to faith, who comes into God's kingdom, we rejoice. God rejoices. That's a proper response, because this person who was lost, who's headed towards damnation, who's outside of God's family, is now back in God's family and in God's grace. And we should rejoice over that and celebrate. Number 6, is it normal to leave 99 sheep to rescue 1 sheep? Well, maybe not, right? Not if the 99 are at risk. That's why you're there with the sheep, to keep them safe. And it wouldn't be sensible to maybe lose a lot more sheep when this one sheep has wandered off. Now, on the other hand, every sheep is valuable, and any farmer will tell you they will spend a lot of effort to rescue, say, a cow or a sheep or a bull who has gotten themselves into trouble. A lot of effort, time, money. I know many farmers who bottle fed calves who weren't getting fed by their mothers. So is it normal? In one sense, no. And in another sense, yes. If you love the sheep, if you want to care for the sheep, then you'll do things which aren't maybe sensible. Do things from your heart and from your love of that sheep. Number 7, what would it smell and feel like to carry a sheep on your shoulders? You could just say bad. You're probably wet, very heavy, has to wander a long way. It struggles. It's probably not terribly happy to be up there. It's annoyed you. You're tired already. It would really not be a pleasant thing to carry a sheep. Just like it wasn't pleasant for Jesus when he carried us by going to the cross into salvation. 8, rejoicing with neighbors means funding a costly party. Does that seem wise? No, again. You went out to get a sheep to make yourself money, and now you're spending all this money to celebrate getting the sheep. What God does to save us isn't wise. It's love. And it causes his heart to overflow with that love, so he celebrates it. He wants to announce it, to gather together, to love those who have come into his protection under his care. 9, read Romans 3:23. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Is there such a thing as a righteous person? No. We're all sinners. Simultaneously, we're saints because of Jesus' blood, but in and of ourselves, without Jesus, we're all sinners. We all deserve nothing but hell and damnation. So there is no such thing as a righteous person. And yet, every Christian is a righteous person. I'm made so 100%. The math doesn't make sense, 100% sinner, 100% saint. But the reality is that we are those things. Until we die, we'll remain sinners. Once we die or Christ comes again, then we will be 100% saint forever. And even now, in God's sight and by God's, we are actually 100% righteous. 10, how should we interact with undesirable people? Well, we should realize that no person is undesirable to be a part of God's family. Now, you as children, association with people results in effects upon how you grow up and on your life. So you have to be careful in this world not to be influenced in bad ways and not to be hurt by those who would hurt children and other people. So in that sense, we have to be careful in our interaction. But we should always be seeking to show love to other people, seeking to have them as part of God's family, and we should be viewing other people as we view ourselves, as sinners who are lost without Christ, but as loved children of Christ, as sheep whom God will rescue at any cost. Complex idea and a complex way to interact, but basically from this we want to learn, we look at other people as loved children of God, and safely, as safe as possible, particularly when we're young and children, we interact with them to show God's love. Thank you very much.